what the work that he's doing is important, because there's thousands of inmates just like him that really don't have a lot of hope.
Right. Nobody has their back, but you do have these organizations like the Last Prisoner Project that are willing to go and rally and throw events specifically for the purpose of freeing these inmates, and they have the influence to even have a governor pardon people.
Oh yeah,
that's huge.
Hell yeah. So I think we're ready to show the world.
Oh yeah,
to show this world.
Oh yeah, you guys are ready for Deshaun?
I think that people are gonna like it. He's a Nashua native, went to Nashua North.
Yep.
So he has ties to New Hampshire, he has ties to the city.
Yep.
And it just comes to show you, man, sometimes it can happen to one of our own.
Yeah. 100%.
So you never know. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
It's Deshaun Durham. You know who I am. Former cannabis inmate, sentenced to 8 years for 2 pounds in Manhattan, Kansas.
Deshaun Durham is one of those stories. A Nashua native, cited in Kansas for marijuana possession with intent to distribute. No violence, no criminal history. Just a young man caught in a system that's punished people like him for decades. They gave him 8 years. He served 2 until the governor pardoned him. Now, he's on the front lines, fighting to legalize the very thing that nearly stole his future. Deshaun, thanks for joining us this week, man.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on your platform.
Yeah, no problem, bro. So, just I guess for the people that don't know, what happened? Let's take it right from the beginning.
Yeah, well, as a lot of people may know, I used to live in the Nashua area, but I ended up moving to Kansas my senior year, and Kansas it's a lot more rough than I'd say New Hampshire. So I got caught up in a lot of BS and ended up selling weed. It's not bad or anything like that. Like, weed's good. It's not a drug. I don't think it's a plant. It's here on Earth. It's been here longer than us. But I started selling the plant, and I ended up getting raided by the DEA in Manhattan, Kansas, and they caught me with the pounds. And they ended up giving me a 8-year prison sentence as a first-time offender who's never been in trouble before.
Never been in trouble in Nashua or Kansas. That was the first time you've ever anything with cops.
Yep.
Damn. I thought, from what I heard on, what was the news station that covered your story over in Kansas?
Cake News, KSN, the Kansas Reflector.
Okay. I thought that it was 2 pounds.
No, it was 2 pounds, but the other one, it wasn't really flour. It was like a bag of stems, honestly. So,
okay.
I mean, I don't really count that, but in the legal aspect, yeah, I did get caught with 2 pounds.
Right. So they got you with a bag of flour and a bag of soup.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't even know what I was doing with the stems. I was just being stupid, but yeah,
just
I had them.
It's like
yeah,
a memento.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I was sure I was looking up something I could do with them.
Right, but for a first-time offender, that's crazy.
Yeah, 8-year prison sentence is definitely pretty insane.
That's insane. When I was watching the news, you said something about it was the same judge that sentenced somebody else. Do you think that judge has it out for people like that? Does he do that all the time?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that racism plays a small part, if not a bigger part, because, one of my good friends, he got me out, Dante West from Kansas City. He works with the Last Prisoner Project. He was in Manhattan. He got caught with 1 pound, and the same judge that sentenced me, Riley County District Court Judge John Bosch, he gave him the same sentence as me, 92 months in state prison for a pound of weed with no criminal history. And then he ended up getting himself exonerated, which is pretty much when you win your case through appeals. And so he ended up getting out, and then he works for the Last Prisoner Project now. He's trying to get people out. He helped me get out. When I got 8 years in prison, I was in El Dorado. I filed a clemency petition, which is you write a letter to the governor of Kansas, and you have to pretty much tell her why you deserve to get an early release. And I filled it out, and I waited about 3 years. And, Dante and my attorney, Barry Grissom, they was working hard on getting me out. And then one day, I just got a letter one day, and it was from the governor of Kansas saying that I'm going home 5 years early.
5 years early. That's so, shout out. I mean, I guess, the judge screwed you, obviously, but shout out to the governor for stepping up and doing the right thing. It's exactly what should have happened. I don't think you should have been. The thing about prison or jail is that it's not a rehabilitation center. You send people there and they get worse. You don't get better. You don't go to jail, come out a better person. So sending a 19-year-old there for a non-violent, non-harmful substance, first-time offender, instead of making them go to some sort of maybe meetings or community service, maybe fines or something of the sort. Shit, I would rather my license get taken than get sentenced for 8 years in prison. So, shout out to the governor, I guess, for stepping up and doing the right thing. And shout out to the Last Prisoner Project. Can you talk to me more about them?
Yeah, the Last Prisoner Project, they're a nonprofit organization, and they're dedicated to getting out nonviolent cannabis offenders out of prison early. We believe that no one should be in prison for cannabis. There's a lot of nonviolent people serving excessive sentences for a plant, essentially. Like, you got guys like Kevin Allen in Louisiana. He's serving a life sentence for 2 grams. And you can go to Bourbon Street, New Orleans, and buy weed legally. So
That's
it really doesn't make sense. But
a life sentence. What does a life sentence look like, in years wise?
Well, the release date's 9/9/99/999.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So definitely pretty hard to get to that year right there.
For 2 grams, what year could that have happened at, if you know by any chance? Because, obviously the law progresses and, I think it's legal now in 25 states, so half the country. So do you know when he got sentenced to a life sentence for 2 grams? Like, what year that was? Was that 90s, 70s?
I know it was I'm not for certain, but I'm pretty sure it was within the last 15 years because he still had some active court cases going. A couple weeks ago, he had another court case, and sadly, they rejected his resentencing petition. So that's not very good. But, we got to keep faith and keep fighting for these guys and keep giving them voices. Because I know when I was in prison, I lost hope sometimes. I didn't always want to believe that, the Last Prisoner Project and Dante and all them were going to help me out. But, when you're in there and you see these people, they're sending you newsletters, you're seeing what they're doing. You see them in the community talking about you, and you see this other people in the communities that are rooting for you and wanting you to get out as well. So when you get that community support, there's no better court than the court of public opinion. So if you get the court of public opinion on your side, then ultimately you're going to get accomplished what you want to get accomplished.
Yeah, damn. That's awesome, man. I also saw you say something about 834 people just in Kansas that are arrested for nonviolent cannabis crimes. 834, and I think you said $30,000 a year for each one of those, coming up to around $25 million a year in taxes to house nonviolent offenders.
Yep. 834 people in Kansas prisons right now as we speak for nonviolent cannabis offenses. And I said it is $30,000 a year to house every single inmate. So when you got 834 guys, you times that by 30, and you get about 24 million.
Yeah.
So definitely it's not very good. It's a lot of money that could be going to fixing the roads. Here in Kansas, a lot of potholes and stuff. So I'm tired of messing up my car. That 24 million, 25 million, it could go towards way better things, improving schools. State. Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, for sure. You're not wrong at all. When I saw that, I was like, damn, that is a lot of money to be tossing at housing people that don't even deserve to be in there.
Yeah, they serve they don't serve a dangerous society.
Exactly. And just to focus on you a bit more, how was your experience in there? Like, give me the first week or two. Like, how was classification?
Well, it definitely sucked because I went to the oldest prison in Kansas, and it was the most dangerous as well. So where I went, You ain't got no AC.
Oh,
You got bed bugs. You're in a room with like
damn.
75 men, and you're all like 5 feet apart from each other. It's like a bed. You can see the next person sleeping next to you when you wake up. And
Oh, I've only
yeah,
seen
so I
those
went there.
movies.
When I went there, it was the summertime. It's about 120 degrees inside because when it's like 110 outside, it's gonna be about 10 degrees hotter indoors. So
Right.
it's about 120 degrees. I'm laying down. I take a 5 minute nap. I wake up. I'm getting bit by bed bugs. I got bed bugs crawling on my arm. It's bad. I still got scars on my arms from all the bed bugs. And
Jeez.
so I'm also an advocate for prison rights because I don't care what you did. It's human rights. You shouldn't be having to live like that.
That's
You go to sleep,
100%.
you're high, you're sleeping in 120, 125-degree weather, and then on top of that, you're getting bit by bed bugs. So it's just, it's a human rights violation. And I feel like that
100%.
they need to do something about that, and people need to be made aware of what is happening.
You know, it's crazy. They could use the same 24 million they're using a year to house these dudes to give better living conditions for the guys that are in there and are supposed to be in there.
Yeah, most definitely. Like I said, I know a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, well, they're in prison, so, they don't deserve this and they don't deserve that. But a lot of these guys, they're a product of their environment. I've seen a lot of young gangsters from the streets, parents on drugs, all they have is the block. And they have to do things in order to survive in the streets. And they get caught up in their environment and they end up going to prison. And these aren't bad people. I've met some of the best dudes I've met in my life in prison. Like I said, they're just a product of their environment. They don't have another option. They have to sell drugs or they're going to be homeless, or they have to sell drugs, or their siblings that they're looking after aren't going to have clothes. They aren't going to be able to eat. And then they get caught up and go to prison, and people crucify them and tell them how they're such a bad person. But in reality, they're just doing what they have to do to feed their family, which I'm sure anybody would do if they were in that situation.
Exactly. I can agree with that 100%. A lot of people that haven't been in that world and they're just outside looking in will just look at it as like, oh, well, it's the decisions you made and you just blah, 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 blah. But it's like, if it's all it's what everyone else is doing. Yeah, like you said, you're a product of your environment. You're a product of what society is, presenting you. Everyone's dealt a hand, and you're just playing with the cards that you're dealt at the end of the day. Was the organization that you're working with, is that the Last Prisoner Project, and were they there helping to advocate get you out before or after you got out? Like, how did that relationship come to be?
Well, it was before. It was when I was still in there, in prison. I was able to, get some good dialogue with them, and they ended up sending me a letter, pretty much like a release. They can use my name and everything, and I signed that, and they started advocating for me, and they ended up, with Dante West, who works for him. He ended up getting me Barry Grissom in the Last Prisoner Project. Got me Barry Grissom, and he's a very well-known attorney. He used to be the United States District Attorney for Kansas and Missouri. He was appointed by Barack Obama himself.
Wow.
So, he had a lot of pull. And, as soon as they got him on my case, that's really when it started to, take off in terms of, things that are happening. I had a meeting with the chief legal counsel for the governor when I was in prison, and they're pretty much just, asking me if I was remorseful of my crimes. And yes, I did commit a crime within state law,
Right.
but the time fit the crime is the big thing, is what I told them. You got people, I was in there with child molesters and murderers and rapists, and they're getting less time than me. So it's insane. And, the meeting went good, and thankfully Barry Grissom and Dante West in the Last Prisoner Project were able to, set all these things up, like the meeting with the chief legal counsel. And then after that, I just waited. And then a day after the presidential election when Trump won, I got a letter saying that I've been pardoned by the governor of Kansas, which I still had to do parole in my post-release time, but I wasn't supposed to get out until 2030, and I'm out now. So parole, post-release, any of that, I'll happily do that because I should be in the heat right now. It's May. It's probably hot in there. I should be getting bit by bed bugs, but instead I'm out here talking to you advocating for all the other inmates out there that are still, locked up. Guys like Kevin Allen, Michael Woods. Michael Woods, he's serving a life sentence for cannabis. It's just crazy.
And you were talking about the living conditions, like how it's not like the cells. It's I've seen it in a movie before that like a bunch of people being in the same basically giant cell with just bunk beds, but like a bunch of them in a row. Is that kind of like what I'm imagining here? Because I've been
it's like an open dorm. It's just like a big room. It's a big room with about 4 rows of bunk beds, all like about 2, 3, maybe 4 feet apart from each other. And, there'll be like a run. You'll go up the hallway. There'll be 2 rows of bunk beds. When you're going down the hallway, then you go into the bathroom and come out the other side, and there's 2 more rows of bunk beds in a hallway. It's just a giant room. So you can imagine how hot it gets in the summer when it's already 110 and you're in a room with like 75 grown men.
Yeah.
And you don't have any AC.
Smelly people.
Yeah, and a lot of them, there's a lot of people that are real bad drug addicts, and once people are so deep in their addiction, how kind of they kind of forget about their hygiene and everything.
Right. And some people are probably withdrawing and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
For sure. It's just there's a lot of politics in there. If you don't take a shower, take care of your hygiene in there, you're gonna get beat up. So that's really not something that they play in prison.
Yeah. And the shower shoes are important, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, don't want to get, athlete's foot. The prison shower floor might be the most disgusting thing on earth. Like, it might be up there with, like, Sharon Noble. I'm not going to lie. Prison shower floor. It's disgusting.
It's pretty bad. Okay. So, what about if the living conditions like that were so bad, no AC, what are we talking about for beds here? Are you just, like, sleeping on metal, itchy blanket?
Pretty much, you get a 1/2-inch thick mat, and that's it.
Damn. 1/2 inch?
And it's full of air, so when it runs out of air, you're just kind of sleeping on the metal.
Jeez. What's the blanket situation?
I'm not going to lie, the blankets in there, they went pretty hard. They were nice, big wool blankets, so I'll give them that.
You got to take the dubs where you can get them, bro.
Yeah, those blankets keep you nice and warm if they don't have bed bugs on them. I didn't sleep in there. I didn't sleep with any sheets or blankets because I was scared. Because, people that sleep with sheets and blankets in there, that's the bed bugs will hide in, like, the seams of the sheets and stuff.
Right.
So I just had my green mat, no sheets, no blanket. I'm just thugging it out because I don't want to get bit. And it actually did help a little bit, too.
How bad is the food?
It's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. It's not healthy for you. You go to the chow hall, it's all carbs and sweets. Pasta. Sandwiches. They just want to keep you carved up. Keep you fattened, so they don't have to worry about it. But the commissary, it's not much better. Like, honestly, they just raised everything in there by 300%, which I don't even know like the legality of that.
Right.
Because the summer sausage went from being $1.50 in there, and it's $4. Like a bag of pork rinds in there was $1.09. Now it's $5.
Damn.
So
inflation.
I mean, I was glad that I was able to leave before I really had to deal with that. But other than that, it's all the food comes out of a pouch. Like there's no nutritional value in none of that.
Right. How just to kind of reel it back again. Walk me through like. How was it when you first got arrested, like the day of? Like, were you just like home? Were you like getting pulled over? Like, how did it even, did you know it was coming?
No, I didn't know it was coming at all. I was a big dab guy, real big into concentrates. It was about 6 a.m. I like to start my mornings off pretty early, get everything situated when I was selling tree and everything. But I woke up, turn on a little music, turn on my e-nail. I don't know if you know what an e-nail is, but yeah, turn on my e-nail, took a nice scoop of wax, I was just letting my e-nail warm up a little bit, and I just hear this banging on my door. My friends will mess with me like that, so I'm like, quit playing, bro. And then you hear, please search warrant. I kind of just froze there. I look around, I'm like, damn, what the fuck? I get to throwing stuff. I'm throwing, like, I threw the pound, under my bed real quick. I hid my wax, my wallet, I hit everything. Yeah, I'm just listening to him beat the door down.
Jeez.
And then I finally hear the door come down, and they said, Deshaun, come out. And I go out there. That's how there's like 15 cops. They got the ARs or the green lasers. Like, they mean business. So they throw me on the ground. They cuff me up, and they sorry.
No, you're good.
They took me to the to the holding cell while they searched my crib and everything. And you know, he came back after the search warrant was over. He told me, he pulled out his badge and said, yeah, I'm pretty sure his name was Detective Spencer. He said, I'm Detective Spencer. I'm with the DEA. You're being charged with possession with the intent to distribute marijuana. Your bond's $10K.
Damn.
And like I said, this was so early in the morning. This was like 6 a.m. No one knew where I was at.
Right. Were you
like
ready?
no one had an
ready
idea
to go to work? Or no, well, you were selling tree. Who needs to
Yeah,
work?
yeah. No one knew where I was at. So people were hitting me up like, yo, where's D? And then my friend ended up going by my house and seeing my door just laying on the ground. So I was able to bond out, you know, $10K bonds.
Damn.
It's only $1,000. So I was able to get out that night. I went back to the house and, you know, everything was all messed up. Like my house was destroyed. But, yeah, they found me at the tree and then it just goes from there.
Yeah, yeah. Any crazy like stories you got from inside of there? You know, okay, so just to share a little bit about myself, I had my own experience with just going to jail, not prison, but even my first week there, I saw some dude like jump off the second tier and like split his head open on the ground. I don't know if he was trying to commit suicide or what he was trying to do, but it happened like right in front of me. Guy was walking up after eating, and then he just like started climbing up the, you know, we were just on the second floor. He started climbing up like the little fence they've got there, and he just hopped right over head first, dove first. And that was my first week in there. I was only in there for a month. And I was like, is shit like this happening all the time? So I'm just wondering, like, riots, fights, stabbings, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, really where I was at, it was a minimum. So in Kansas, if you're a minimum inmate, you can leave and go out and work a job like on the streets, like a factory.
Nice.
I worked at a honey factory. So a lot of those guys in there aren't trying to risk their jobs because, you know, you're going out and you're making $15 an hour. The prison takes 50% of your check, but, you know, you're still in the world working, you know, see some women and everything. So no one really wants to lose that. But, you know, there's still a lot of politics and stuff in there for sure. You know, like big race thing, you know, you usually just like there, I wouldn't say they were too strict on sticking with your race, but if something popped off and there was a fight between two races, then the tension could raise a little bit.
Okay.
But me personally, I really never saw too much outside of fights and just people having episodes on K2 and like wigging out. You know, one of my good friends, he did get hit in the head with a curl bar 5 times, you know, right in front of me. So that was pretty traumatic. You know, it was a good friend and it was just the wrong place at the wrong time. And I wasn't close enough to prevent it. So, you know, I kind of still heavy on my heart, you know, but he was in a coma for about a month, but he was able to make a full recovery, thank God, after
awesome.
getting hit in the head with a curl bar 5 times. You know, that's solid steel right there. So, you know, luckily he was a bigger dude and he could take it and he made a recovery. So I'm just thankful for that. But outside of that, I really never saw too much. You know, you go out in the yard season, people smoking meth or usually just cigarettes. But other than that, there's really not too much violence. The politics really keeps everything in check.
Okay. So can I ask you, where are you and the Last Prisoner Project kind of heading from here? Do you guys have like some like I don't know how it works. Is it like a tour? Is it like you guys just have like certain events? And is it like a full-time job you work with them, or is it like just kind of like a volunteer type of deal? How does that work?
It's pretty much like they help me get out. So, you know, I'm an ambassador for them. Pretty much like I don't get paid, but, you know, I'm just trying to spread the word.
Right.
And I'm trying to, you know, help other people get out. And,
That's awesome.
you know, I feel like Last Prisoner Project helped me so much that I'm going to work with them. Like, you know, this is my family. Like they, you know, cut 5 years off my sentence. So I'll forever be in debt to LPP for that. we get paid, for certain events and stuff like that. But it's really like in terms of like, a consistent like job, like you get paid. No, it's more just like a volunteer thing. But, I'm all hands on deck on helping the cannabis inmates because I know how I felt when I was in there, and I want to help other people, give them hope in a dark place.
Right.
Because like I said, when I was in there, when I saw people, going to D.C., advocating, talking about me, it gave me hope. So I wanted people to see me do that, and I want to give them hope as well. But, in terms of like events, we were just in D.C. a couple weeks ago. We was there for 4 days. We did a lot of good stuff, had a press conference outside of the Capitol on Capitol Hill.
I saw
Ben
that.
and Jerry's director of advocacy was there as well. A lot of important figures, we talked to a lot of legislators like Omar and a few others. They were super supportive, always have been. But in terms of that, we just, whenever there's an event or something like that in the area, we just go there and represent for the cannabis inmates, try to get them home, trying to raise that awareness.
Right. And do you still like come visit Nashua every now and again, or you kind of just like?
Yeah, I was just there visiting my dad in March. Yeah, I went to the Nash Casino. It was just kind of hectic because I was there for my cousin's baby shower, so I really didn't have too much free time. But it was definitely cool seeing the fam.
Right. On Capitol Hill, I also saw you guys kind of try to reach out to Donald Trump about, making it recreationally legal across the nation. I'm just wondering, was there any hear back? How does that work? Do you guys just like mail in like a paper or petition signed by a bunch of people?
Yeah, a lot of the things on the internet, people write letters, like clemency petition writings, do a big online, project where, we market people writing letters to the president, and people go online, write out a letter, and then, it'll get sent off. But in terms of like, talking to them directly, haven't been able to do that just because the current administration, it's kind of tough right now. I'm not going to lie. I'm never going to lose faith. But, with Trump and everything he's trying to do, I just feel like sadly, he's not too worried about the cannabis inmates right now. I know it sucks. I'm trying to do more myself to kind of raise more awareness so he could see. Because like I said, he was giving out pardons 2 days ago. He pardoned NBA YoungBoy.
Yeah.
He pardoned Larry Hoover, even though Larry Hoover still has 200 plus years on state charges. So I just feel like if he's willing to pardon them, like where are our guys at? Like the cannabis inmates, the guys serving life, the guys that have potential to never go home for a plant.
Right.
I just hope Donald Trump sees it.
Popularity does, because these guys that you name that are getting pardoned because their names are out there. And even though they've committed more violent crimes and worse crimes than the non-criminal cannabis offenders, they get to get out simply because of popularity and their name is well known. While these guys, 834 in Kansas alone, rot in there for a plant that you can buy in over half the country. Quick question, man, before we close out in a couple minutes here, what's next for you and The Last Prisoner? What steps are you what's next for Deshaun?
I'm just working a job, trying to get off parole right now. I start my pre-law degree in the fall, so I'm the Kansas justice system. They put a fire under me that is going to carry me all the way through law school. Because the best way to beat them, if you can't get to them, is to beat them in the courtroom. So they're gonna have to see me in the courtroom one day. I'm gonna become a criminal defense attorney, and I'm gonna try to help keep people out of prison or try to advocate for prisoner rights. Because there's no better knowledge when you're in this kind of game than knowing the law to the full extent. So that's the best way to get them. So that's what I'm going to do, start my degree. We got the Gala for Justice in New York City in October. A lot of good stuff. Got a lot of good people who's going to be there. I'm getting an award personally. That's going to be pretty cool. But it's just going to be a great night. Yeah, appreciate it.
Congratulations, bro. Yo, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, please give it up for Deshaun. Fucking, that's awesome, bro. Everything. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thanks for coming on the show. And
yeah, no problem, bro.
We should
Appreciate
do it again soon.
Yeah, most definitely. When I get my setup, with my webcam and everything, we'll definitely do something again. I'm just like I said, I just got out, so just getting my equipment together.
Do what you got to do, bro. Do your thing. It seems like you're taking the right steps and doing what you got to do to clean it all up and not only that, going the extra mile to help others because you got helped, which is your what is it called? One hand washes the other, or when you pay for like someone's food, then
paying it back,
paying it, paying it forward,
for sure, paying it forward, But you know, before you go and everything, you know, I just want to, you know, like mention some cannabis inmates. You know, you got Robert Deals, you know, Michael Woods, Muhammad Tar, you got Kevin Allen. You know, before you go, I just want people to know those guys' names and kind of research them and how disproportionate their sentences are.